So the Game Awards happened. It used to be the Video Game Awards that Spike TV used to do, and then they changed it over a few years ago. I'm not positive why. Geoff Keighley, as I've said in the past, he does a very admirable job of putting this together. And this is an event where, there's not, again, this isn't like the Academy Awards where you have like an independent, funding for it. The Academy puts it together. This is funded and produced by and large by the video game publishers. You got your Ubisofts, you got your Activisions, you got your Nintendos, etc., etc. So there is always going to be give and take when it comes to how much is this actual an awards program versus an infomercial. Okay? So with that in mind, I still think, before I get into it, that Geoff Keighley has done a very admirable job, since he's probably walking on eggshells. We had, of course, the very strange events that happened before, where Nintendo's helping put this together. Reggie Fils-Aimé is on the board of directors or whatever, or advisory board for this event, and you had 2 Nintendo fan games that were up for a nomination for Best Fan Game that Nintendo had taken basically off the internet with cease and desist. And it was awkward because I guess Nintendo didn't know that was going to happen, and they had to have them taken away. I spoke about it last one on the podcast. All right. So I didn't watch all of the Game Awards, because now it includes board games and Baccarat and other fun activities. No, it's still the Video Game Awards, but for some reason they want to differentiate from the Spike ones. Maybe Spike TV trademarked the Video Game Awards, went that Fine Brothers route. I don't know, but it's the Game Awards. And here's just some of my highlights and thoughts. I tweeted out some of them. It started off with the Hideo Kojima, the Vanguard, Life Achievement Award in the video game industry. And of course, last year they wanted to give it to him, but he was still under Konami's thumb at the time, still under employment. And that was a month or two after it was announced that he was probably on his way out. And, Metal Gear Solid 5 was still on the way to being released. Or was it released? I don't care. It's not the point. The point is that Jeff got up there and gave a speech about Hideo Kojima, where I thought for a second he was speaking about a political prisoner that got out of prison after 12 years. Like he was speaking about Nelson Mandela, or like it was very, very strange. He said how it was a travesty that Kojima was not allowed to get the award last year, which, you could make an argument for that, of course, since Konami didn't want to look like assholes. They look like assholes anyway, but they didn't know what Kojima was going to say. We could have been like, screw you, Konami, I'm out of here in a few months, blah, 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 blah. You don't know what you're doing with Simon Belmont. But Geoff Keighley, said that this man has went through so much, he's endured so much. He almost broke down in tears. And I thought that was a bit of an overreaction. Because at the end of the day, what happened to Hideo Kojima? He was treated like crap at his job for a few months. Had his name taken off of one game. Had another game canceled that he's somewhat reconstructed into Death Stranding with the same cast of characters and this from PT to this game. So I mean, it's not like this is a total washout at this point for him in his career. The guy's worth tens of millions of dollars. The guy is still beloved in the video game industry, and the guy is still pursuing his dream job of making games his way, video games, and being... It's almost like it's better that he's out of Konami now, because now he can do whatever he wants. His artistic integrity cannot be influenced or ruined. So it was a little melodramatic. And again, I think Jeff did a great job overall, but I think he went a little over the top with him presenting Kojima as someone whose life was in shambles somehow, and now he's been resurrected. The guy one of his lines was, he was stuck in a room for 3 months. Most people are stuck in their shitty jobs for 30 years at jobs they don't like. And at the very least, this guy is stuck in that job for 3 months and still getting paid a ton of money. Other people aren't getting paid that much and doing something they don't want to do. So the guy had a bad 3, 4, 5 month period I will take that anytime. The last, I'd say 2.5 years at my job at least, were not good times, let alone 3 months. So, all right, he gets his award. That's a big F you to Konami from a year later. It is what it is. Geoff, pump the brakes a bit, Geoff. This isn't a guy that was wrongfully convicted of murder on death row for 20 years, and then they had DNA evidence set him free a week before the execution. All right. What was embarrassing, though, is that it's not like this award show has a huge amount of awards to give out overall. It's not like the Academy Awards. There's a few dozen at most. But at least with that show, they can still get to like some of the lower level ones, like production design, you can see. They had so many awards cut for time that they couldn't even like at least on the Academy Awards, they'll be like, oh, the technical awards were filmed earlier yesterday. And they at least showed people on stage talking and getting their award, even though it was like 5 seconds each. At this award show, they kept saying, well, this was cut for time, but we gave the award the best fighting game, Street Fighter 2. Oh, Street Fighter 5, excuse me, or whatever. Was 5 come out too? I have no idea. What decade am I in? Anyway, so they kept treating it like, well, there was no time for this. Yet, they had the embarrassing skits of the Schick Hydrobot Razor. So Schick is the sponsor. What a shock to everyone, because they had a guy dressed up as a Schick Razor in a costume, with some other, I guess, guy from the video game awards or game award show, like talking to him and shilling Schick Hydro Razors. And I tweeted, real gamers don't shave. It's a funny joke, but stereotype. It's there for a reason. Could be partially true. But anyway, I'm not shaved totally right now. So they had multiple skits with this guy dressed up as a Schick Razor. And they even had like 16-bit era little cut scenes away of like a Schick robot fighting game where the Schick blade is fighting a generic blade and kicking his ass, like Street Fighter style. I understand you need monies to run your event. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than this blatant, in-your-face, this is our sponsor, this is cringe-worthy, and we're going to shove it down your throat. I think the vast majority of audiences would have been a lot happier had they just run like 4 or 5 30-second Schick Razor commercials throughout the event. Just their normal TV commercials. Or this event is sponsored by Schick Razor. Blah, 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 blah. That, I think, would have went over better. And that, I think, is where one of the problems remains with this event. Again, is that they can't separate out the infomercial part, which is so blatant. I mean, they would go from the awards straight to, let's talk to this developer about this game that no one is either heard of or really cares about that's coming out from a developer that at least I never heard of before, and we'll talk to him for a few minutes and show off some footage. And it's just a blatant commercial. That's just who wants to gives us the most money to advertise a game, and here you get a prime time slot online. It's live. It's being seen by tens of thousands of people, 100,000 people or more. And here you go. Here's your game's going to get some more downloads now, some more sales. It's just they can't even pretend to disguise it. That's the problem. But I guess we have to accept it for now. We just have to. That aside, though, there's still some good things that were going on during the event. Then there's also some bad ones. I'll get to both. Real quick, is there a reason why they combine sports and racing into one genre? There's not like a best racing game, best sports game. So you have to endure like Forza being in the same category with like FIFA. That doesn't make any sense to me, because I never knew that they were the same genre. Of course, someone's going to say, oh, they're motorsports. I don't go on ESPN that often and see motorsports too much. They might talk about it. Yeah, the Indy 500, hey, Daytona stuff's going on. They're different genres, especially for gaming. It's an entirely different set of skills, and that's where you really define it. To be good at a racing game versus, say, a baseball game or even a football game, and there's different criteria for what makes a good quote unquote traditional sports game versus a esports, a motorsports or racing game. Just bizarre, and I'm glad the presenter called them out. The presenter's like, this is really fucking, I'm paraphrasing. He's like, well, this is weird, and I don't know why we're combining them, but here you go. He even said it. He probably went off script a little bit. Who knows if he'll be asked back to that. But I thought it was just really just strange, and it caught me off guard. What also caught me off guard was the Best Voice Actor award going to Nolan North, who does the voice for Uncharted. He's Nathan Drake. Uncharted 4, I think there's a 5th one they announced, or a spin-off coming out. They'll do those forever, too. I always like when they say, oh, this is the last Halo game. No, it's not. This is the last Mass Effect game. No, it's not. Anyway, so Nolan North comes on stage, arguably the most recognizable voice actor on the planet at this point, and he throws shade at the voice actor strike that's been going on for the past at least, 4 or 5 weeks. And he's a guy that's, I think, a part of this strike. And he comes up on stage. And so just quick background. We spoke about it, I think a year and a half back when we first brought up the voice actor strike. They're striking for for better conditions, for the voice being strained, having more breaks, shorter, they want I guess to be protected more, the health of their voice, but they also want, the big one is they want a percentage of profits of game sales. That's the big stickler, the big stickler between them and the game publishers, where I don't know if they're ever going to come to an agreement there. All right. So anyway, one of the voice actors, at least during the strike, their motto is performance matters. So Nolan North, again, who is also, I believe, striking and is the biggest voice actor in the world, gets up on stage and says, you know what? Performance matters. The performance of the game developers, the artists, the programmers, the modelers, their performance matters. And if it wasn't for them creating these awesome games and worlds, I wouldn't have a job. So, wow. I'm not saying he buried the voice actor strike, but he sure as hell didn't support it on stage. He actually came out not against it, though, but he supported what I always said the argument was, that the game developers get treated the worst of all out of all these groups. And that if the voice actors don't get, if the developers and coders and modelers and graphic artists don't get a percentage of sales, why should the voice actors demand that when they work 1/1000th at most of the time on these games as these other guys do, who work for years on a game, versus voice actors that work at a few days. Like what's going on there? And of course, people will say, well, they're two different issues. Just because one group doesn't have it doesn't mean this other group shouldn't have it either. I totally understand that, but Nolan North basically said these guys are getting overlooked. Maybe we shouldn't be tone deaf to the developers and everyone else. Maybe we look like prima donnas. Again, I don't want to put thoughts in his head, but that's how it came off to me, where it's like, who the hell are we to demand this stuff when the coders and developers and the guys that slave away on these games for years don't get a percentage of the sales? Why should we? And if it wasn't for them, we'd have no jobs to begin with. It's a valid point. You might disagree. There's a point there, and he's the biggest voice actor in the world. I just hope the other voice actors and Will Wheaton don't beat him up and yell scab at him and hit him with their picket signs. So there was one strange moment during the event, cringeworthy, and I missed it the first time through. So it might be better that I didn't. So two big YouTubers, iJustine and Matt Pat, who I've known since 2010. Back when he was posting on game trailers, even really before YouTube. They were presenting for the Impact Award. So these are games that are, I guess, they have some sort of either social relevance or there's something deeper about them. This isn't just, shoot, as Frank would say, run around a corner, shoot a guy in the head. So the Impact Awards featured the Impact Award category featured games such as Sea Hero Quest, which contributed to research on dementia and understanding of that neurological, if you want to call it, disorder, disease. I've seen, my grandfather went through a form of dementia, and my grandmother, that's not fun to see. That. Not familiar with that one at all. And then there's also 1979 Revolution Black Friday, which that's a game I'm a little bit more familiar with, that has to do with a photojournalist being in Iran during the Iranian Revolution. Scary time. in history, especially with stuff going on between us and Iran during then as well. So that was one of them. You had a game called Orwell, which I didn't know about at the time. I read up on, has to do with sort of or an Orwellian future with kind of touching on NSA stuff now and looking at all the private communications of people's lives and where do you draw the line between security and freedom, some heavy topics. And then the eventual winner, which is a game that I should play at some point, That Dragon Cancer, which is an extremely emotional journey from the footage I've seen and from the reviews, an extremely emotional journey of the couple, Ryan and Amy Green, of their son who was diagnosed with cancer at a year old or so. And then he died around 4 years old, and the ups and downs and eventual heartbreak of them losing their son to cancer. So this is the game award that you are presenting for, okay? So iJustine and MatPat get on stage with these huge grins on their faces and are acting like they are presenting the award for cutest cat game of the year. It was really just bizarre when I went back and watched it, and I really couldn't believe that not more was said about it, at least on social media, that it was just either they didn't tell them what award they were presenting for, or they didn't read up on the games, or they didn't care. It was like one of the three. So they get up on stage, and again, they're like, I'm really not trying to bury them. I just want to hammer how weird this was. They're smiling. Hey, we're it's happy to be here. Video Game Awards, yeah, Impact Award coming up, and the winner goes to. And before they present it, MatPat's still happy, and he goes a little behind the scenes. This award is heavy, incredible bicep curls. The winner's That Dragon Cancer, and the crowd is kind of hushed because they know that whoa, okay, all right, this is gonna be some heavy stuff. This is a guy getting up on stage that's going to be talking about basically the game that was inspired from his son dying of cancer. And he actually developed it while his son was dying. And then eventually he died, and he had to change the game to include that awful aspect. I can't imagine having a 4-year-old die of anything, let alone cancer. So he gets up on stage. He takes the award. The camera shot is from a 45-degree side angle of him. And iJustine and MatPat are in the picture, and they're still both smiling. At this point, I don't know if they've realized what's happened yet. That the award they just gave was to a guy who's about to almost break down in tears talking about his dead 4-year-old son who died from cancer. And they probably should have cut on a little sooner, because they cut to MatPat at least once where he's still smiling, and then you can see the point where it clicks. Probably, unfortunately for him, about a minute too late. And again, I'm not trying to bury the guy, but you have to comment on this because it stood out like a sore thumb. He goes from a wide grin, I'm at the award show, to holy shit, this guy's talking about his dead son. And it's within a second, it clicks and the smile goes down to whoa. And then at that point, the director of the show should have said, okay, they obviously don't know what's going on, the presenters. Let's just cut to the one shot of the guy with no one else in the background to make sure that awkwardness doesn't happen again. But they cut back 2 or 3 times, and then you just see iJustine slowly her smile fades, and then MatPat finally realizes it, and then MatPat gulps twice, which was either a holy shit, I acted like a jubilant award presenter, for the best kiss at the MTV Movie Awards, didn't realizing it that he was giving out an award that he probably should have presented in a lot more of a somber way. He did apologize, MatPat, afterwards, which, yeah, he got caught off guard. What are you going to do? It's hard to celebrate a guy's kid dying of cancer. There is a positivity to it that you're helping people in their own situations who either have cancer, know a loved one that has cancer, god-awful situation either way, to get through that. But you have to, in my opinion, play it safe and not be grinning ear to ear. And as you give the award even to the guy, seeing the look on his face holy shit, I'm going to break down crying about my dead 4-year-old. You got to play it safer. Just my opinion. That was just like a holy shit. This is awkward thing that it happened. You got to live with it. You move on. There was one other moment I want to comment on, though. This one actually made me laugh out loud. The Matt Pat I just thing did not make me laugh out loud. I was just like, oh my God. Like, I felt like, woo. But what made me laugh out loud was the Trending Gamer Award. And two of the nominees of the Trending Gamer Award, Boogie2988, Steven, who does good work. He does the Francis Wacky Gamer Guy things series, but he also does some very rational analysis and discussion of gaming issues, publishing stuff happening with gaming publishers, etc. He was one of the nominees. The other nominee, big one, was Angry Joe, who's been doing reviews. Ian loves the guy. We brought him on the podcast a couple times before, and he's been doing these angry reviews like clockwork for like 6 years or so, 5-6 years. Guy works a lot. So, Boogie2988 wins. He was there to accept the award. I like Boogie's work overall. I met the guy. I think he's sincere. I thought he went a little bit light on the Fine Brothers for that whole trademark sort of thing that happened. That controversy, that's okay. No, you're never going to line up eye to eye with someone 100%. But by and large, I think Boogie2988 does great work. I was not familiar with like Jack Septic and a couple of other people nominated, but I'm glad that he won. But you know who else was glad that they won? Geoff Keighley was ecstatic that Boogie2988 won. They cut to Jeff, and he actually does like a little fist pump. Like it cuts from the crowd up to the balcony where he's talking with like his co-host. He does a little fist bump, and immediately Jeff goes, "Yeah, woo, what a moment! Boogie2988. Oh wow, woo, what a great moment that was." and I'm sure that Geoff Keighley met Boogie2988 at some point, or at least at the show, and was genuinely happy that he won. But I'm almost positive he was more happy that Angry Joe lost that award, because if he had won, it would have been as awkward as Roger Goodell handing over the Super Bowl trophy to the Patriots after Tom Brady was suspended for 4 games. That's how awkward that would have been, even having someone else do that on their award show. Because the history between Geoff Keighley and Angry Joe, you can look it up. It goes back to like 2010 or so, 2011, at least 5 years at the Game Awards when it was still Spike TV. Angry Joe was there as a journalist and didn't I don't want to say he waylaid Geoff Keighley on the red carpet or he did an interview with Geoff Keighley. Let's just say it didn't go well. It was sort of like Angry Joe was trying to attack Jeff. Jeff was defensive. It was awkward as all hell. And then Angry Joe tried to follow up afterwards at the Q&A afterwards in front of I'll just say it, the real gaming journalists. And Jeff kind of put him in his place, made him look like a buffoon, which would have been fine if Angry Joe didn't do like a 20+ fucking video about the whole experience and basically bitched about Jeff and how fake he was and how bad the show was afterwards. And you can go look up that video. I mean, it's out there. You can go look that video up if you so choose. It's like 20+ minutes. So to go from that to potentially giving, I guess, still a rival, if not a guy he doesn't like, a Trending Gamer Award probably would have made Jeff physically ill. He might have thrown up on that balcony, like over the side onto people in attendance. So go back and watch his little fist bump, like mini jump. So fucking happy that Angry Joe did not win. I laughed out loud seeing that live, and I tweeted about it. I'm not the only person that realized what was going on there. So those were, to me, the highlights and lowlights of the event. And again, I think Jeff overall did a pretty admirable job with what he has to work with the event. And eventually I'll get through one of these without fast forwarding or falling asleep.